Hello and welcome to our Awakened CEO conversation on August the 12th, 2015. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the logistics and the agenda. First of all, I want to make sure that we make this interactive. For those of you who are attending the call live, you have the opportunity to ask questions or suggest discussion topics for me and my special guest, Debbie Lynn Grace, for later on in the conversation. We're first going to talk about what it means to be an awakened CEO to me. I'm going to share some inspirational thoughts with you. Then we're going to introduce and have a conversation with Debbie, which I'm really looking forward to. And after we go through my standard 6 questions with all of my awakened CEO conversation guests, we're going to come into questions and discussion, and that's your opportunity to join us in the discussion, to share your thoughts, to share your questions, to offer some topics of discussion, so that we can really make this engaging and make it interactive. I expect that this conversation will last from 45 to 60 minutes. Typically, that's how long they last. I want to give you an invitation to join me in the Awakened CEO community. That is a community that's for everyone who wants to build a strong business and be the best person that they can be. We support each other through the challenges of growing a business and help each other gain wisdom in the process. Being an awakened leader, I believe, is part of the natural process of evolution. I think our planet is becoming more awakened and aware all the time, and we're becoming better CEOs and leaders because of that. We are exposed to a lot more ideas and cultures than we ever had been before, and I think we're all opening our eyes a little bit to the oneness of all people. I really am excited about the transformations that I see happening here in our society and in societies all over the world. I think self-actualization is the goal for any advanced person. I'm a big fan of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where he talks about taking care of your physiological needs at first, and then safety needs, and then the love and belonging needs, the things that are supplied by a community. Then we look for self-image and self-esteem, pride and confidence, and then comes into self-actualization, where we're really focused on being the best that we can be. And that means being a great leader when it comes to business and the way that we interact with people. And it also means to being an awakened person when it comes to our self-reflection and our own personal and spiritual growth. To me, then, an awakened CEO is alert, aware, sharp, and clear. They optimize personal performance for themselves and for others. They're confident yet humble, respected for who they are. They typically acknowledge, respect, encourage, and support everyone that they run into, and they serve others through their leadership and by example. An awakened CEO sets a clear vision for others to follow. They have a great team, and they collaborate well with that team. They run a smart business, make tough choices, make plans, and then focuses on meeting their goals. They listen, they learn, they adjust as they go through life. They guide, they mentor, they coach everybody that works with them and for them. And yes, they even care and love every single person that they come into contact with. What an awakened CEO gets in return is great teamwork and collaboration. It gets great loyalty, it gets a stronger business, and fantastic personal satisfaction. My personal experience is that awakening and business success come hand in hand. That's why I started the Awakened CEO community, that the lessons of life and the lessons of business happen simultaneously. We gain business savvy and wisdom, life wisdom, at the same time. And as we grow our business, the business grows us, and vice versa. My personal experience is that you can achieve a very high level of consciousness without living in a monastery, without being ordained, without spending a lot of years in India, just by focusing your time and attention on doing your inner work day after day after day. Then when you do find yourself to be out of balance and temporarily in the shadows, you can learn to return to a state of grace and a state of love and life very, very quickly. My experience is that you can have an enormous amount of peace, joy, strength, wisdom, and love in your life and build a profitable business at the same time, and it feels absolutely great. Again, that's why I started the Awakened CEO community, to share that experience with other people and encourage them to take a path that's similar to mine and focus on being a wise person and a kind person and a joyful person while they're focusing on being a great CEO. We encourage people to focus on 3 areas of expansion simultaneously: business growth, professional growth, and personal growth. I think that's what an awakened CEO does. They're in a constant state of expansion in all areas of their life. And I urge you to find your success formula. This is mine. I spend 12 hours a day or so focusing on business, an hour or so focusing on personal growth, an hour focusing on professional growth, and a couple of hours doing what I call balancing activities, exercising, having a little downtime, maybe watching a TV show or playing a video game. I call those balancing or relaxing activities. And that's the way that I play the awakening game, which I encourage you to play with me. And the game is pretty simple. It just means that we're finding ways to be at our highest vibration every second of the day, through frequent self-assessments and through focused attention on shifting our energy when we find ourselves to be at a lower vibration, when we find ourselves to be in a little lower consciousness for a few moments. And I want to talk about what that means a little bit. We promised in the subject line to our last invitation of this particular conversation that we'd talk a little bit about being in the now. And as I reflected upon that, I was reminded of a couple of great books that I've read in my life. One of the first inspirational books that I read that was very, very meaningful to me was called Be Here Now by Ram Dass. In fact, my lovely wife of 40 years was reading the book Be Here Now when I first met her. And it was one of the things that caused me to be really attracted to her, that this beautiful lady was on this path of personal growth and spiritual growth as well, and on a journey similar to mine, because she was sitting there reading the book. Be Here Now is still one of my favorite books, and it's on those bookshelves that you see behind me. And every once in a while I pick it up and browse through that a little bit. That was the first time I ever heard the concept of being in the now. And of course, one of my other favorite books, and much more recent, is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which talks about being in the now and how valuable that can be. Many people, unfortunately, and I know that there are many people because I was one, have a tremendous challenge of their own fearfulness. They live in a state of stress. They're attached to their own internal dialogue. Their thoughts are just screaming at them about the past and about the future. They're replaying the past with some anger and blame. They're worrying about the future, even when they're focused on the tasks that they are doing throughout the day. For most people, that focusing on the task really relieves some of the stress because it quiets the mind for a little bit. When we focus our attention on a task that demands a lot of attention, then our thoughts naturally quiet down and naturally slow down a little bit. But still, many people live in a high state of stress where they may be focused on the tasks that they're doing, 30% of their time, but the rest of the time their thoughts are just spinning about stressing about the past or worrying about the future, and they have very little peace of mind at all because they're spending very little time in the now. But spending time in the now is a pretty incredible blessing. When you're in the now, there's no attachments to the thoughts. We become aware of our thoughts and see them as interesting perhaps and entertaining perhaps, but they come and they go without any attachment to them. We have no regrets and no resentments because by definition, having regrets and resentments requires thought. It requires thinking. And when you're able to let go of your thoughts and sit in the silence, you don't have any regrets or resentments. It really reduces the stress in your life. You can reflect on the past for a few minutes every once in a while to learn the lessons that the universe is trying to teach us. And you can easily create the future with or without thoughts. Thinking and envisioning the future that we have in great amount of detail is part of the attraction and manifestation process. And as a result of living in the now, you can have incredible peace of mind. I remember vividly one of the times when I entered into the now, into that state of no thought, just kind of transparently and spontaneously. I was walking my dog in 2008 when I set out on a little bit of a journey, and just all of a sudden my thoughts just stopped. And I was just hearing the wind in the trees and the sound of the train going by in the distance and the cars and the planes overhead and the birds and the dogs, and it was just a marvelous, marvelous experience. Since that time, I've been blessed to enter into the now, the silent now, very frequently, spontaneously throughout the day. And anytime that I choose, I can just let go of that my thoughts, and enter back into the silent now whenever I want to, which is just a beautiful thing. So now my experience is more like this, like other conscious people, where we're spending some time on tasks with a quiet mind. We may be reflecting on the past just a little bit, but peacefully reflecting on the past. We are joyfully creating our future, and spend a lot of time just sitting in the silence. I am humbled by the memory and of that many people never experience peace of mind in their life. They really don't know what it means to sit in the silence and experience the blessing of a silent mind and the healing that that brings to people. And I encourage those of you who are on the call listening to the recording to just think about that, to focus on spending a fair amount of time every single day, many times a day, being in the now, returning to the now, where you're just experiencing the physical sensations and the sights and the sounds of being in this body, in having this human experience of being in the now without being attached to that internal dialogue, and become a more conscious person over time. And with that, it's my very great pleasure to introduce my special guest, Debbie Lynn Grace, who is one of those very conscious people that it's been my privilege to meet over the years. I want to read a little introduction to her, and then we're going to ask her some questions. And here's what the information that she provided to me about her journey, and I know that you'll find it fascinating. Debbie started her professional journey in the early 1980s as a corporate marketing executive. Eventually, she started her own marketing consulting firm in 1994. And not long after starting her company, she found herself in the middle of a divorce. And as part of her recovery process, she took the suggestions of her older sister, Lisa, who is a gifted healer, to learn a form of energy work called flow, alignment, and connection. And in learning this energy discipline, Debbie discovered that she too had the gift of healing, transformation, and a very powerful intuition. For the next 20 years, she combined her advanced energy and intuitive skills and her business expertise to help her clients accelerate their sales growth, even in a downturned economy. In 2014, Debbie decided to step fully into her higher calling and devote her life of world service to her true purpose through her new company, Debbie Lynn Grace International. Her mission is now to show you how to dissolve all your energy blocks, which keep you from having a blessed life of authenticity, purpose, confidence, love, passion, and prosperity. Debbie is the author of Outrageous Business Growth and a contributing author to 5 other books. She's an international speaker, published in over 200 newspapers, magazines, and websites worldwide, and is frequently interviewed in the media. And I am thrilled and excited to have her as my special guest today. Welcome to our show this afternoon, Debbie. If you are talking, I cannot hear you. I don't know if you're on mute or not, but please say hello to us to make sure we got the audio working here. And Stephanie, I don't know if you can help me, but I cannot hear her at all. Can you hear her?
Hello?
Hello? Is this Debbie or Stephanie?
It's Stephanie.
Stephanie, we can't hear Debbie. I took her off mute and then put her on mute and then back off mute, but I can't hear her, unfortunately.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. Thank you very much.
That's okay. I think you muted me.
I did. If I did, it was unintentional. I apologize for that. Say welcome to the folks who are on our call today.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me on the call. I'm really delighted to be here.
It is great to have you, and I am going to ask you the same 6 questions that I asked all of our guests, and I know that you're ready for that. So I'm going to jump right into the first question. Tell us a little bit about your business journey. Tell us about your business background and your current business.
Yeah, what's really interesting is I was very much in the now, listening to the first part of this call, listening to you and looking at the looking at your slideshow here.
Uh-huh.
And if we were in front of a live audience, I would have taken your graph, your success formula graph, and said, "Where's your pie chart?" Right? And you had where you are and how much time you spend in business and how much time you spend balancing. Did I get that right? I'm memorizing it now if you don't have it on the screen anymore.
Yeah, you did great.
Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what's interesting about my business journey, because you've already given quite a bit of background in the introduction, is that if I gave you that pie chart 30 years ago when I started business, and I gave you my pie chart today, they would look vastly different.
Yeah.
Vastly different. And so 30 years ago, I started in the direct marketing industry, and so my business background is marketing, in the marketing world, and I started out in the direct marketing industry is all about how do you get a better response rate and lowering your costs at the same time. So what a great education to have, because everything in the internet is driven by direct response techniques. All the copy and how to get a response and how to make money online. Every single thing that I used to do, except I used to do it with something called mail. Do you remember that? You know, something, a piece of paper came in an envelope, came in your mailbox. Remember that?
I do.
The real thing where you actually opened up the envelope. So I was a direct marketing expert, and I had clients like Citibank and Hewlett Packard, and mailed about 18, 20 million pieces of mail for my clients over the years. So I have a pretty extensive marketing background, and then I went on to become vice president of marketing for a $4.5 billion financial institution. Wow. And so I did a lot with not only direct mail, but that's when I ventured into general advertising, and then in the radio and on TV and all sorts of stuff. And I had $1 million marketing budget, which I'm guessing some people don't really have. While on this phone, you know, listening to this call, don't have $1 million marketing budget. But I realized very quickly that bankers, certainly in the banking world that I was in, I can't say for all bankers now in the world today, but in the environment I was in, it was a very small box. And my training was really out-of-box thinking. It was how to always get better results and in really out-of-the-box types of solutions in the direct marketing world. So it was really very challenging for me to stuff myself into this really small box and thrive in this environment. So I chose to leave. I left a very cushy title and a very cushy job and a very cushy salary, and I walked out the door because I knew every day that I wasn't being my authentic self. It was, I felt like I was operating in kindergarten when I was already had a graduate level education. So I left to start my business. And I started out, and not long after I started out, I actually moved into a new city where I didn't know anybody. I was married at the time, and so this would have been, let's see, it was 1994. And so we weren't online then. So at that point, the only way when you start a business is you're either knocking on doors, cold calling, advertising, you know, sending out your own direct mail. And so I used the one skill that I have with the very small database that I had, which was pretty much my friends and relatives around the country. That's pretty much it. You know, and then a few people, suppliers, a few people in the business world that I'd worked for the previous 10 years, but not that many. And I mailed out a one-piece letter. So it's my background, direct marketing. I sent out a one-page letter, and to the less than 100 people I know, and most of those were friends, family, and even people I didn't even like, but I wanted to mail out to as many as I could. And I landed about $50,000 worth of consulting in my first 3 weeks in business. Awesome. And that just from that letter. And so that launched without a website. All I had was basically a letterhead, and a business card. And that started my business. But not long after I started my business, and I was just starting out, I unfortunately got in a situation where my husband walked in one day and asked for a divorce.
Wow.
And I didn't see that coming. I have to be really honest. I didn't see it coming. And for anybody it's a long time ago now. It's 20 years ago. But I think anybody going through a divorce, even if it's amicable, it's still very, very emotionally challenging. And here I am. I have this fledgling business, and I had no other means of support. It was like sink or swim. Like if I didn't make this work, that was it. I'd end up back in the corporate world and had to go look for a job again. So I did what anybody does when they're, going through a pretty traumatic emotional challenge. They turn to their support. And my support was my family and my friends and my family. And I turned to my older sister, Lisa, who was a very gifted energy worker. And, in 1994, energy workers were, not above ground. And if you remember that, I mean, you've been studying consciousness for a really long time, and you didn't really talk about it out loud except for your own inner circle of friends.
Yeah.
You had to go to a metaphysical bookstore just to even get a book on astrology, let alone there was nothing about, all of these things. They were only in the metaphysical bookstores, not in the regular mainstream stores. So I didn't know what she did. I was a left brain, analytical business strategist, and I didn't understand what my sister did, but she said magic words that I look back 20 years later literally changed the course of my life. And her magic words were, "It's time for you to learn what I do." And I looked at her because I thought my sister was a little wacko. I'm just being completely honest. I thought she was woo-woo and a little weird, and she used these words I didn't understand, and she couldn't explain to me what energy work was. But she said, "It's time for you to learn what I do." And I'm like, I'm a marketer. And I said, "Why would I do that?" And she said, "Because it will help you heal." And in times when you're very vulnerable, those are the greatest moments of transformation.
Yeah.
You never have a transformation when you're all feeling on top of the world and confident. You only have a transformation when you're willing to be open and surrender and be vulnerable. And in that moment, I was down on my knees. And I thought, okay, if you tell me this is what's going to get me to wake up in the morning and smile again without crying all day long, then I'm willing to do it. But as it turned out, I learned this form of energy work called flow, alignment, and connection. And in regular practical terms, it means the ability to track energy flow and identify where there's a block of energy in a person or a situation and facilitate the energy so as a release of the block. And so in the business world, it looks like there's really 13 energy blocks in business, and I'm not even today's conversation is not to go through them, but when you release those blocks, it means you're going to make more money, you're going to have more clients, you're going to have the right message, and things are going to run smoothly. In a person, releasing an energy block means you're no longer going to be unhappy and sad and in fear and stressed and depressed and feel hopeless. Instead, you're going to feel happy, fulfilled, prosperous, and joyous and creative and passionate and all the things that we were meant to be, when we came out of the womb. So for the next 10, 12 years, I became an underground energy worker and above ground marketing consultant. And what that means was I didn't tell anybody that I had a very strong intuition and that when my clients came to me, I was literally tracking the energy of what was happening in their business, and I would give them very solid business advice, and they would get results quickly when they applied my advice. But I knew things that they weren't telling me because I have a very strong intuition and as a business intuitive, but I didn't tell anybody. And then the next trajectory happened, which is really where it led me into my path today, which is in June of 2005, on June 22nd of 2005, my older sister Lisa, who was really my spiritual guru, my teacher, my mentor, and my best friend, she went to sleep one night and she never woke up.
Wow.
And she was 45 years old and she had 2 small children, a single mother. And she basically, they said her death was natural causes, but she had internal bleeding, and that's ultimately what caused her death. And I'll tell you, that will rock your world.
Yep.
It will really rock your world when you feel like your whole left side has been ripped out from your body, and that's the way I felt. And it was right after that that I realized that I could no longer live my life the way I was doing it, which was to the outside world. I had a very strong following online by that point. I already had a book. I had a lot of business. I was making really good money, and I was also not telling the truth. I wasn't telling people who I really was and what I really do. All they saw was the business advice I was giving them, but I wasn't telling them really the depth of what I knew and why I knew it. And I asked myself an important question, and perhaps some of you listening might ever ask yourself this question, and I hope you're never in a situation where you have to, but in that moment I had to ask this question. And I asked myself the question, if I go to sleep tonight and I don't wake up in the morning, is my work on this planet done? And I never knew to ask that question, but in that moment, because I saw that happen to my sister, I had this big voice in my head that screamed at me, no. And I realized that it was time to have that awakening, as you call it, that awakening of consciousness, and it's time to be transparent, to just trying to be authentic, and it was time to be in complete alignment. So for the next few years, I came out of the closet, so to speak, and told the truth. And it was really interesting, the reaction I got of people. I gave a teleseminar 7 or 8 years ago where I told this very story. It was the first time I'd ever told it out loud at that point. And I got masses of emails after that, after having the guts to finally tell my personal story, because I thought, oh my God, there goes my list. I thought for sure all I would get were people unsubscribing. And instead, I got email after email thanking me for having the courage to finally tell the truth, and now they had the courage to tell the truth after hearing my story. So I began to more actively and proactively talk about energy blocks and releasing energy blocks in business. And then a couple of years ago, I had another moment where I realized, I don't know, I can't tell you the defining moment, Paul, of what happened, but all I know is that at the beginning of 2014, I woke up and I said, okay, you've gone as far as you can go as Debbie Vermont, which is what my name was. You're going to have to go way further. And so I changed my name to Debbie Lynn Grace, and I started to move forward and teach classes on soul-aligned success, on how to dissolve all the energy blocks in your life, and how to walk in your soul path. And that's what I have devoted my past couple of years doing, and all of my followers just followed me. they just took it all in stride, like, of course you changed your name, and of course you're doing this now, because it wasn't any big surprise to them by that point, because I've been so blatant about my journey after that. So that's kind of where I'm at today. That leads me to, today my name has changed, my business name has changed to Debbie Lynn Grace International, and I have never been so delighted to be me. I don't know what else to say about that.
I think what you said was absolutely awesome, and I'm sure people listening to this call are also encouraged to step out and have that moment of bravery when they raise their hand and say, me too. I see things, I feel things, I know that there's something going on here that's just not this physical world, and I'm in tune with it and becoming more in tune with it all the time. I think that's beautiful. You talked about your sister as, I think, maybe your primary spiritual teacher for a long time. Did you have any religious training, or were there other spiritual communities that you were a member of as you grew?
Not at all. To be honest, I pretty much, while my sister was alive, she literally was the end-all be-all. And to me, she taught me a lot about the honor and integrity of when you are gifted, how you honor it. You talk about an awakened, conscious leader is somebody that's confident yet humble. And when I work with people, the amount of energy that's coming through me and the guidance I'm getting that's come through me as I'm reading people at a soul level when I'm working with them, I am forever humbled by the gift that the universe has bestowed upon me and the responsibility to that gift. And that is probably the most important lesson my sister taught me over the years, because she was very, very gifted. And so it was really working with her. And then when she passed on, I felt like a, kind of, what do they call it, kind of out to sea with no lifeboats. I felt like I was drifting out to sea because I didn't have a strong community.
Yeah.
I wasn't following anybody. But the woman who I originally learned energy work from, I came back into her community. I hadn't taken a class from her in 10 years since, when my sister was alive and first turned me on to her. And so I came back to her, and then I formed what's called an energy triangle from that, where I did energy work with 2 other people. It's a very powerful thing that we did, and that kept me really going for quite a few years. But to be honest, there's a part of me, I jokingly say that I've written more than I've read. Unlike you, who's got obviously many books in your bookshelf, I'm not an avid reader, particularly of other people and personal growth, unless I'm guided to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't do anything that I'm not guided to do, literally guided to do. So if I'm guided, I meet somebody and I'm guided, or I see something on email or online, and I might be guided to the book. So the only book that I can say I've read more than once, in fact several times, is The Alchemist.
Uh-huh.
It's such a great spiritual message. Other than that, I don't, because I practice what I preach, and I teach spiritual principles. And for me, this journey of life is to get closer and closer to God and to your soul, and to hear what your soul is telling you. And so I religiously follow all the things that I teach, and that's my spiritual inner work. And
do you have any favorite spiritual teachers today, of people that you admire and respect and pay attention to?
Yeah, I think the only person, every once in a while I tune into him because we kind of talk the same message, but it's always great to hear somebody else say it, and I feel like he's got a pretty high vibration, is Dr. Michael Beckwith.
Uh-huh.
So he's got the Agape Church in Los Angeles, and a massive following, written a lot of books. So I think I really like what he has to say, because again, we're very aligned in our message, and I like the way he phrases things.
That's wonderful. I'm going to come back to you with the other 3 questions that I have here in just a minute. But I want to take just a minute to talk to people about who we are and what we do here at the Awakened CEO System. In addition to this webinar that we have, every other Wednesday or so, I do an office hours presentation, which is primarily focused on business growth, every Monday at noon Pacific time. Not quite every Monday. We about 45 or 47 Mondays throughout the year. We skip one every once in a while, but mostly every Monday at noon Pacific time. We do a conversation, which is typically a presentation on a subject of business subject of one or the other. And then we also have an interactive session where we open it up for questions. So watch your emails for sign-up information for those of you who are tuning in here. And for those of you who haven't done so already, I encourage you to seek out more information on the Awakened CEO System. We have programs here at our company for business growth, for personal growth, and education, training, and tutoring programs. You can go online to paulhoyt.com, or you can send me an email to paul@paulhoyt.com, or give me a call with the number that's on your screen. So I thank you for doing that, and I encourage you, if you found conversations like this meaningful and helpful to you, if they somehow help you become more authentic and a little bit courageous to tell your story, and to share a little bit more love and light in the world than perhaps you were otherwise, and to do it openly, then I encourage you to connect with us so you can be a member of the Awakened CEO community itself. With that, I'm going to turn our attention back to Debbie Lynn Grace, my very special guest, a former marketing consultant and marketing professional with some very, very large companies, who's been on an incredible journey of the transformation from being a purely analytical left brain business consultant focused on the numbers and profits, and to being a person who now really focuses on the energy and to guidance and helping people get in touch with their authentic soul. I assumed, Debbie Lynn, like me, that you're still on this journey, that you haven't learned every lesson that the universe has to offer you, and that you're still learning lessons.
Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if there was like an end point so you could say, okay, I've arrived?
I have this sense that there may be people who have reached the end point.
Yeah, they're 6 feet under, and they're going to have to take into the next lifetime all the stuff they really didn't learn.
I hear people talk about a couple of people. One of the one that I hear most revered so far is a gentleman named Sri Ravi Shankar, who is one of the most powerful spiritual teachers in India today, and has a following of millions, 160 million or something like that around the world. And the way I hear people talk about him is that if he's not perfectly aligned all the time, that he's very, very close to that. But the rest of us, I think we're still on our journey. So with that, what are some of the most recent or important lessons that you have learned in the last couple of years or so?
Wow. I'll tell you, my work has always been intuitive. I mean, for the last 20 years, as I really surrendered to my gift, I honor it because to be honest, I have a 100% track record. I mean,
Wow.
when I'm working with somebody intuitively and tuning into them, I've never ever in all of my years ever had somebody look at me and go, "No, that's not right." So I can only base on, the feedback I get, because sometimes I get some really interesting information in my head about somebody that they've not even close to anything they've ever told me, and I have to verify it with them, because I'm sitting there going, why am I being told about when you were 5 and something happened to you, that rocked your world, and right now we're talking about response rates, and so um,
Hmm.
but the fact of the matter is that but in business, there's some hardcore things that have to happen, as you know, because you teach them,
Yeah.
and there's some logical things that have to happen. But I have left that world. It doesn't mean that I don't still give some business advice to my existing clients and my existing students, but that's not why. No longer, it's not why people seek me. And so I guess what I'm saying is, in the last couple of years, I took I had to step away from my 30 years of business and the way I always did it, which is to show up like you are now, with a PowerPoint, and have a very specific agenda and know exactly what you want to cover. And I started to do live events where I definitely showed up with a couple of pages of notes, and I never looked at them for the next 3 days,
Wow.
and never followed notes. It was literally moment by moment guidance, and I can tell you there was quite a few times when I thought, ooh, I want to teach this next, and then I would tune in and I'd be like, oh, guess not. I'm not teaching that. I've been overridden again. And I had to follow that. I follow it moment by moment, and at the end of the weekend, every single person in the room literally looked 15 years younger. They had such massive transformations over the weekend. They were playful and loving and kind and became best friends, and just were like giddy little children. And they walked into that room completely fearful and vulnerable,
Yeah.
and a little worried. And so those moments when I actually think I'm in control, I get the universe, my lesson gets slapped in the face. It's like, no, Debbie, go back to that place of surrender. And I'm sure that the universe is quite amused that on a whim, on an apparent whim, I thought to change my name, and I picked the word grace.
Mm-hmm.
And without all this thought, oh, I want to be in surrender, I want to be living in grace. Like, it was really an instantaneous decision, and I didn't spend months thinking about it. I didn't spend years thinking about it. It was another guided moment. But now I'm seeing how amusing the universe is. I am seeing the universe because I am committed to not only being transparent, but I'm also committed to walking my talk and practicing what I preach. And so what are the lessons I've learned? I've learned, be careful when you choose a new last name. If you're going to choose Grace, you're going to be looking in the mirror every single day and being reminded all the places where you have confidence to live in grace and all the places you don't.
Yes.
All the places you still think you're in control, which is really, and then the universe is going to put new things in your path to show you how out of control really your life is, and how if you go back to that state of grace, it will be a whole lot easier on your emotional and physical well-being. So I guess I created my own lesson, I suppose. I chose this
I think
name, and
that's
then I committed in front of an audience and in front of my following
yeah.
to everybody that that's what I would do. I'd choose to live in grace. and then I get to be reminded the places that, I'm not, and where I get to just move back. And as a person that's on a path of consciousness, I see it pretty quickly. It doesn't
Yeah.
take a long time for me to get that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So is there anything that you're working on now as your journey continues?
Yeah. So again, because I woke up one day and felt guided to do this, I found out that I started to attract, of course, a lot of people on their spiritual journey. I've done a lot of personal development, and I also am what society would call a highly sensitive person.
Mm-hmm.
And for anybody listening to this call that doesn't know what that actual label is, it's actually a label for people who are wired, physiologically wired differently than a person who's not highly sensitive. And it means that a person that's wired as a highly sensitive person means that they're wiring whatever affects your senses, your 5 senses. It's like you don't have a filter, you have no buffer. And so your senses are constantly being assaulted in some form or fashion, or they're being overly stimulated.
Mm-hmm.
And 20% of the population is highly sensitive, but you'll find that anybody that is wired this way, whether they're conscious of it or not, almost every single decision they make in their life has to do with their sensitivities.
Mm.
Most people are not conscious of it. They've learned to cope with it. Other people who have such strong sensitivities, they are struggling. And so I, over the years, learned various energy techniques to release energy out of my body quickly, because I take on other people's stuff just by walking through the grocery store. But I have to keep sort of highly in tune as an empath, or I wouldn't be able to do the work that I do. So I decided to teach a course for people that are highly sensitive, not actually even realizing how large of a population there is. And what I found was that, 20% of the population is a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people. Now, of that 20%, I'm going to guess, not even 0.5% or, 0.0000001% of the population actually knows what it means to be highly sensitive. They just know that they're sensitive. They don't know that it's actually a physiological wiring. It's not a mental thing. It's not an emotional thing, but your emotions do get affected, and so does your mental state, besides your physical state. So that's what I'm working on now. So I've taught a course. I've got a brand new course on how to thrive, because what I have found is that people that are highly sensitive, they have a harder time making money.
Yeah.
They have a harder time receiving. And so it's been a massive learning experience over the last few months, and I've been teaching this course, and I'm just about to get ready to teach it again. And I've had probably the most astounding feedback of any single course I've taught in the last 20 years. And I have a lot of testimonials, But in this course, it's highly personal. It's the most personal thing I've ever taught in my life, because I am a highly sensitive person. And so I know how people like me think, and I know how they react, and I know what they're doing that's making their life harder. And my goal, again, is to show how to make people's life much easier, and live with their sensitivities and use them as a gift and not a challenge.
That is awesome. I have one final question for you, and then just to, as our attendees probably know, we're going to open it up for questions from the people who are live on the call. And my last final question for you is, do you have any final tips for the listeners today? Any 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you can leave with us?
Yeah, could I give 2 techniques to the group? Would that be okay with you?
I would love to hear this.
These are probably, I've been teaching these 2 techniques for years and years and years. One of them Lisa taught me like 20 years ago, and it has saved my life. And so there's thousands of people around the world now practicing this technique, because I've taught it to them, and it helps you every single day. So the first one is the one Lisa taught me, and I call it mine, not mine. And you use this technique when you have just been like spiritually or just like energetically vomited on. Like somebody just sent you a nasty email, right? Or somebody was just mean to you, or you got in the middle of a horrible argument, and so you just took on all of this energy into your body, right? And or took on, if you're around somebody if you're in a highly toxic environment. So that's what this is good for. And what it does is it releases all that energy out of your body that you just took into your body immediately. And so here's what you do. You take your right hand and you tap your chest with your right hand. Very lightly, tap your chest, and you breathe. You inhale and you say in your mind, mine. So what you're saying to your body is, this is my body, only my body. This is mine. And then you throw your hand away from your chest, palm out, back into the universe, and you exhale and go, not mine. It is the fastest way to clear energy. I tell people to use it in the corporate world. I go, guy, when you've been in a bad meeting and people have just been screaming at each other, you go to the bathroom immediately after that meeting. And you go in the stall and you practice mine, not mine. You know, road rage, somebody cuts you off, you know, practice mine, not mine. So that's one. And I can't tell you how many people love this. I love that technique.
And you're saying mine is in M-I-N-E, right?
Yep. Mine, M-I-N-E, as you're tapping your chest and you're saying to your body, okay, I only want what's mine, and if I, you know, and you're basically, as you exhale, you're saying, and now I'm getting rid of anything I just picked up that's not mine.
I love that. I love that. That's a great technique. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, yeah, you can use it all the time. You could use it for road rage. You can use it when somebody sent you a crappy email, and you can actually even use it if you're highly sensitive. You take on stuff from just the TV and the media.
Yeah.
So so that's a good one. Okay, the second one is something that I practice religiously. All of my students practice religiously. It will like literally change your life, and it's a grounding technique. Because you can never move into that space of higher awareness and consciousness without being grounded, or you'll just be airy-fairy. And this will literally, you'll probably make more money if you practice this religiously. And the reason is because you will be much more grounded, much more aligned. And the minute you're more grounded and aligned, you start to you have more space to receive. So here's what you do. You just, for all of you that can do this, you get on the ground, okay? So you can get on the carpeting on your floor. You don't have to go outside to do this. You can just, you know, lay on your carpeting at home or put a towel down on the floor. And you lay on your back, but you can bend your knees so your feet are flat on the ground and your knees are bent, but you want your back to be pretty firm to the ground. And then my suggestion is you have your arms perpendicular to your body with your palms up, lying on the ground. So if you had your feet down, it would look like you're in a cross, except you actually have your knees bent. And then all I want you to do is close your eyes, and I want you to breathe, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. And I want you to keep breathing and focusing on your breath until you feel your back melt into the ground. And what you're doing is you're literally releasing everything you've taken on from your body, and you are being nourished by the ground. And every time you inhale, you're inhaling the nourishment from the ground, keeps you grounded. You will be amazed at how much clearer your thoughts are.
I am I'm really amazed at that last one, because I've been doing that without us ever having talked about it. I've been doing that every night for the last 6 or 7 years.
Good. So then you said you'll have a testimony to how effective it is.
Every night before I get into bed, I lay down flat on the carpet. In my case, I stretch my arms out over my head, but I experience the same thing that you were just talking about, that after, you know, some amount of stretching and, you know, and laying there, that your back just melts into the flooring, and it's a wonderful, wonderful grounding experience. Wow, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing those two techniques with us, and I appreciate you going through my 6 questions that I like to ask all of my guests. And you have, I think, a special offer for our guests as well. That for those of you who are watching the screen instead of dialing in, you can see the URL on the screen itself, outrageousbusinessgrowth.com/PH for Paul Hoyt. Talk to us just a little bit about that offer, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay. Well, tomorrow, actually, Thursday, the 13th of August, I'm giving a complimentary program for people that are highly sensitive. So if any of you listening in this call are a highly sensitive person or an empath where you know that you're sensitive to other people's energies and you'd like to know how to be much more successful and more prosperous and not take on everybody's stuff, I'm giving a webinar on the 4-step formula for life success for highly sensitive people. And it's complimentary, and I'm going to go through the most common 8 energy blocks that make your life so much harder that most highly sensitive people, that's how they operate their life every single day. And I'm here to show you how to release those energy blocks through this formula and start to really thrive. And so you can go to that website, outrageousbusinessgrowth.com/PH for Paul Hoyt, and you'll be able to register for the webinar. And again, it's free.
That's marvelous. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And for those of you who are tuning in live or listening to this recording, I strongly encourage you to go there and listen to this webinar, because you'll get a lot more of the wisdom, and the energy of Debbie Lynn Grace tomorrow night on that. I'm looking forward to it, I know. We have one question that came to us in our question box in our chat log, and then we're going to open it up for other questions as well. Stephanie, can you share that question with us, please, that came through the chat box? Are you there? There you go.
Can you share at least, can you share at least 2 very common business energy blocks that you encounter time and time again with people? And Darlene is on the call if you want to unmute her, I think.
We asked the question. I'll let her raise her hand if she wants to speak about it further or enter into discussion, but that's the question. 2 very common business energy blocks that you see.
Well, so here's the bottom line. If you're not pricing your services to reflect the value of what you offer, that's an energy block. If you're not actually attracting the right people who say yes and think you walk on water, that's an energy block. Those would probably be the 2 most common energy blocks. Mostly when I wrote my book, Outrageous Business Growth, the whole book was about the 4-step process on how you align with exactly the right customers, and I do it in a way that most people don't do it. And I say why what's taught in the marketplace is going to still get you a lot of people that don't fit. So those would probably be the 2 biggest energy blocks, or maybe I might have even said 3, I don't remember. I didn't have my list. I haven't talked about energy blocks in business in so long. So.
Well, that's cool. I'm going to take the young lady who asked that question is named Darlene, and she's on the call. Darlene, I took you off of mute. If you've got some comments there or follow-up, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, thank you, Paul, and thank you, Debbie. I really enjoyed your talk this evening, and I've gone to your Outrageous Business Growth site there and signed up because I'd like to hear what you have to say, and that is tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that, because
thank you.
Asking questions there, I'm sure you're going to answer all of that in your seminar.
Thank you.
Okay, super.
Thank you, Darlene. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to put you back on mute. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Stephanie, we've got like time for only one more question. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, I'm trying to think which one is the best one. I think I'd love to hear what's next for you, Debbie Lynn, and for you too, Paul.
Okay. Debbie, I'll let you go first.
Really, what's next for me is that class. I mean, that's the most current thing that I'm doing, is teaching that program for highly sensitive people. So I think that's the fastest answer.
I think that's I'm looking forward to that class as well, and I'll just give my 2 cents in as well. I really have 2 sides, 2 great passions, and one of them is the personal and spiritual growth, and the other one's the business growth. From the business growth perspective, what next for me is the expansion of the Awakened CEO community and the Awakened CEO brand in a lot of different ways, and really becoming a passionate voice for being a leader in your business is more than being a leader for getting profits and revenues in the door. It's being a leader of the people too, that you are a role model. The question is whether you're being a really good role model, and being a humble, authentic, wise, kind, compassionate, courageous, bold, daring person, or are you role modeling something else? Are you role modeling stress and fear in your life? So from a business point of view, I'm very focused on expanding the brand awareness of the Awakened CEO community and the whole Awakened CEO system. And from a personal growth perspective, my journey continues the same that it's been for many years, which is just as many times as I can during the day, wake up to a higher consciousness, to snap out of the task consciousness that I get caught up in, and remind myself what an amazing, amazing experience it is to be a human, to have a body, to have these thoughts and these feelings and this breath and this heartbeat and this consciousness and awareness. It's just an incredible, incredible, amazing experience to me to return to the silence and return to the stillness and find that inner guidance that's on the other side of that. And as Debbie talked about so many times during the conversation tonight, is surrendering to that incredible, beautiful, divine spirit that flows through each and every one of us. So I thank you for that question, and I give a special thanks again to my special guest, Debbie Lynn Grace. I encourage everybody to go to outrageousbusinessgrowth.com/PH and sign up for the webinar, and to tell your friends about the Awakened Conversation. If you've enjoyed this conversation and gotten some value from it, please tell them about the Awakened CEO community. Tell them about paulhoyt.com and the business growth services that we provide, and tell them about Debbie Lynn Grace and the beautiful light that she is to the world. And with that, until we meet again on the next Awakened Conversation or office hours or in a phone call or in a face-to-face meeting, this is Paul Hoyt wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.